Hi, everyone. Welcome to Genealogy Adventures. I'm Brian Sheffy.
And I'm Danielle Williams. It's hot, hot, hot. I don't know how I feel where you guys are, but it is hot here.
Yes, the words sultry and steamy immediately spring immediately spring into mind. It is like walking outside into a sauna today.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is.
But after a couple of gray, miserable, kind of misty, gray kind of rainy days in DC, it's nice
It's
to see the
welcome.
sun. It's welcome. It's
It's
nice to
welcome.
see the sun
Mm.
for a change. So, as always, thank you everyone who's tuning in, who's watching, who's listening. Thank you for spending the next hour with us, however you're spending it with us. Um, we think we have an interesting show today. I can't, of all the genealogy shows that we have watched and that we watch on a regular basis, I don't think we've ever seen a show about the cost of doing genealogical research. Have you
Mm-mm.
ever?
No,
Just no.
no, no. This is kind of new for all of us.
True. And actually, when we were chatting years ago about Genealogy Adventures having its own kind of research service, we did a lot of intensive research to see what people were charging, and then it quickly became apparent that genealogy isn't really regulated. You have other industries that are regulated, like the medical profession and the legal profession and paralegals and accountants and all of those kind of white collar professional type
Well,
occupations.
I think it's because genealogy has always been thought of as a hobby, not necessarily a job.
That's a
So
good
you're
point.
not, yeah. So you're not, you know, you don't have to go to school for it. You don't have, none of that stuff. You don't have to do any of those things. It's not until just recent or what have you that it's really been, or in the past few years. I don't want to put a number on the years, but in the past few years that it's because, y'all can't hear me. Michelle, you can't hear me.
I can hear you loud and clear.
Michelle says she can't hear me. Can you guys? Can the rest of you guys hear me? Oh shoot.
No, I mean, usually I'm the one who can't hear you and everyone else can. So I'm saying I hear you loud and clear. Maybe she needs to check the audio on her, how she's watching. Yeah, Kelly just
I'm
said
getting yeah,
volume is
volume
good.
good. Okay. I just need to
So
fix
back to what we were
the
chatting about. So you
But
were
what
saying, because actually you raised a really good point, because it is still perceived as a hobby and not really a profession.
right. So they're telling me I sound muffled. Okay, I hope this works. But yeah, it is it's not looked at as a profession. It's just really starting to be looked at as a profession, in my opinion. Um, you don't, like I said, you don't have to go to school for it. Now you can be certified for it. I don't even know when board certification actually kicked in, to be honest. That's something we can definitely look into. That's it literally just popped in my head. Otherwise, I would have looked it up. But yeah, board certification is something that you do. It's really just starting to kick into that gear of trying to, you know, really put it out there. So
So, because I'm thinking it was really confusing for us to figure out what we were going to charge per hour because there was no guidance on it really. If you get what I mean, there was just because it's not a codified profession. There's not a pay scale that you can go to. And the diversity in the charges were huge. I mean, I can't remember the least amount we saw. Maybe it might have been $25 to $30 an hour, all the way up to people who were charging like $100 an hour. And I
right,
think
right.
when you
No,
and I,
it was never 35. It was 50.
that was, yeah, okay.
It was 50. It could be 50 as little as 50, but as much as 100 when we did that overall, research when we first started looking at it. But then we started to think, about that cost and how black people ain't into really paying out a lot of money for something that they're not seeing a return in their own. I mean, let's just keep it real. They just, they're not, it's not something that they want to just kick out. It's not the kind of money that you just gonna kick out like that. So then we started looking at not just the cost, but we started looking at how long a researcher researches and how they actually, make their money. And it was really, really different to me,
Well,
because
it was, and that's part of what got me confused. And if it confused us, it must confuse. And I'd love to hear what people in the audience, who are watching and tuning in, have to say. It was difficult for us because no two people, even if they seem to be on the same level in terms of depth of experience of researching and how they researched and all of that kind of stuff,
right,
what they were charging. There was just no, I wasn't seeing any consistency.
right, right. Right. And again, like you said, there's nothing covering it. And then not only that, let's just keep it really real. Let's keep it 1,000. This is not tax money because it's not an actual job.
Well, I'm going to push back on that slightly because there are people who have set themselves up to be professional genealogists.
I'm talking about when it first started kicking out.
Mm,
This was
hmm.
not taxed money, so it was
Yeah.
free money going in your pocket. Now, of course, now you're setting yourself up to be professional and all that. This is why we're having this conversation. The direction that it's going and how it actually changed and the movement of it, because you could just charge someone whatever you wanted to charge them, and then that money was placed in
Hmm.
your pocket.
And
So
again,
yeah,
the other thing that confused me was, say for instance, I was looking for a lawyer. Let's say I was driving, I got into an accident, the person who was at fault was in contention, and you're like, right, we're both going to court. What are you going to look for? I mean, you can look for the
right,
ambulance chaser type of lawyer, and you're going to get what you pay for. Or
right,
if you're like me, you're going to do your due diligence. Who's won the most cases? Who's got the best reputation in terms of litigation and all that kind of things? And yes, cost is going to be a factor too. But basically, I want to prove that the other person's at fault and I'm not at fault. I'm going to get
mhm.
myself a good lawyer. You go to their website and they'll say what school they went to, and I mean, they may not. Well, you can still research kind of win-loss ratios kind of thing. Because, and I say that to say, I was looking at the genealogists who were the more expensive side of things, $100 an hour, $125 an hour. But
Mm.
there was nothing really in what they were saying about themselves to kind of prove that they I'm going to put this really badly. I'm really tired, everyone, so I'm really sorry. That they were worth that money. What was
No,
it about them that they felt that they could charge $125 an hour?
see, but that's not being really bad. That's just being real.
Mhm.
This is not something that you can go. This is not a doctorate. This is not something that you could post up on your wall and say, yeah, I got a certificate in this, and I had to go through up 10,000 years of school in order to get to this point. So you're absolutely right. Don't just come to me and tell me, boom, okay, yeah, I'm a genealogist because you researched a couple of things. Give me something. Let me know something. I've been talking to some clients, as you know, for us, and every last one of them, I've told them, me alone, between the four researchers that I work with together, we equal about 200 years of service. Because I got 30. I think Loretta got about 40. I
Mhm.
don't know how many. Sharon, you have what? You got about
About 30,
30 or
about
40.
30, yeah, about 32.
Yeah, we got almost, we literally have almost 200 years of researching service behind us. So it's not like we don't know what we're doing.
Mhm.
And
Now, I guess I would say, so when we were doing our research and we decided how much we were going to charge, and initially, we were charging 35 an hour. People had to book us in 10-hour blocks because anyone who's done Black genealogy knows it's not straightforward, and that you're not
mm,
going to really get. I mean, basically, 10 hours you're going to get to it if we're lucky. I shouldn't say lucky, but if the universe is with you, you will smoothly and quickly get to that 1870 census. Doesn't always happen, but for the most part, for even for African American genealogy, it does.
now wait a
You know,
minute. You said for the 10 hour,
for the 10
it's
hour.
gonna. I think it's shorter than that. I think the regular 4 to 5 hours you can get the 1870.
Yeah, you can get to the 1870 census. When I say for us, the challenging bit and where things start to slow down is when you start, if the person's line was enslaved, getting into that enslavement period in research. And even though we're really good at what we do in terms of that, the records aren't in one place, all in one place. You know what I mean? It's kind of, we know exactly where we need to go to when we strike out in one set of data records, but you still have to go through 5, 6, 7, 8 different databases before you
Right.
start kind of getting into, before you start yielding the results for a specific client. So even though we know that we have an excellent specialism, all of us here in, Genealogy Adventures, plus you have, the Renata Yarboroughs and the Shelley Murphys and the Bernice Bennetts and the and LaBrendas. I guess we were trying to pitch our service at a level where more African Americans would be willing to
Yeah.
spend the money to have their research done.
Which is why we did it so low, and we turned around and we doubled the amount of hours. Because like I said, in 4 hours you can get to 1870. Most people, as long as you know when a person was born, your parents are born in a certain time period, it's kind of easy to get back to that 1870. I think 4 hours is too long, but I'm giving that the benefit of the doubt.
I'm going to say, unless you're a Yeldell or a Suttles, if you're not one of those families, then yes. It's very easy to get. It's pretty straightforward to get back to 1870. Yes.
Okay.
I'm keeping it. You were keeping it real before. I'm keeping it real now.
Okay. That's fine. I get it. I get it. But yeah, I mean, he's right. It took me, I'm gonna tell y'all the guy's honest truth, just to show how right he is. I started researching in 1996, and that research in '96, I was working with my overall family, just really kind of trying to find out how many people how many descendants my grandparents had, and that in itself took me a good 2 or 3 years. But I got a huge family. I have 70 first cousins, so total, even though not all 70 are living right now, but I have overall, my grandparents had 70 grandchildren, and I'm the baby. So it took me a good little while to get that going, to get that information and everything. And then once I got that information, um, I said, okay, well, I'm gonna go ahead and start looking for the dead people. I done found the living. Let me look for the dead. And I chose my grandfather's family for 2 reasons. I chose them because number one, and most importantly, his name was supposedly easy. Not everybody is a Yeldale. Not everybody can, everybody don't have their name. So that was the main reason why tried to start with him. But then the other reason why I started with him is because my mom and them didn't know anything about his side of the family. They knew nothing. They barely knew his parents' names. So when I started doing the research for my grandfather, I thought, okay, I'll find out what the parents' names real quick. When I tell y'all, okay, so 96, let's go to about 3 years, 99. From 99 to 2007, that's how long it took me to find my grandfather as a kid. That's how long it took. Now, once I found him, I was able to get back to that. But I first had to at least find the man. It was crazy. I'd never seen anything like it in my life. His name is
And
Jefferson.
and again, with him, the added difficulty was that the fan methodology of searching friends and neighbors. If you can't find the person you're looking for directly, look at siblings and aunties and cousins and all of that, neighbors. That would not have helped you for him, because
No.
he just removed himself.
Well, it wasn't that he removed himself. It was his family. It was his mom and
Mm.
his dad. And then the fact that even though his name was Jefferson, my mom and them never knew him as Jeff. that's what the problem was. And me being fresh in it, I'm gonna tell y'all something. There was two things with me that I find to be very over the top. Now I'm 51 years old, guys, and my grandparents were both born in the 1890s. My grandparents. My friends' parents ain't like that. You know, it's just that. And then the other thing, so the other thing that really got to me was the fact that my grandparents, that I actually ran into um slavery like that. Like boom, it was instant. Like soon as I found him, the following year, my great grandparents were born in the 1860s, the like right when slavery ended. So this is just that's only two generations, y'all. Two. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me already. I'm here already. I'm at that point. So my second great grandparents were there 1830s. They were slaves or they would have been enslaved. And these were the things that I ran into from the very onset, from the very beginning of my research, you know. And I found that just unnecessarily difficult. Like I don't know. And that's when I also ran into the fact that these Yale girls just they don't play. They hide. They get away. They don't want to be found. They don't want to be seen. They don't want to be, you know, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Mhm. So when I guess people within our research and community, the professional genealogists, the African American genealogists, when they found out what we decided to charge, there was a little pushback against that. And I get where they were coming from because they were saying that, we just recently had this conversation about a week ago with another treasured African American genealogist. Um, and we were trying to explain that yes, we have a depth of knowledge and a specific type of, in general genealogical research, but definitely in enslaved research. And some of us also have that specialism with free people of color. Um, I just felt in my bones if we were to go the 50, 60, $70 route, that would be a real barrier to African Americans hiring us or basically hiring anyone.
Yeah.
Just in my bones, I just felt that maybe making it a little lower would make genealogy would make it more accessible. And we know people who've struggled to pay us that 350 for the 10
Yeah.
hours research. So if we were at 500, there's just no way that they would have done it. And
Yeah.
they wouldn't know anything about their family history.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the goal. We never want to shortchange the profession of genealogy. But like Brian said, the goal is to get African Americans to really get into that research and to learn their history and to understand, you know, where they're coming from because I'm tired of people making the comment, number one, you can't research your family. Number two, well, why are you doing that research anyway? Why don't you just go back? Why don't you just go back to where you came from? They are having problems hearing me. Okay, I'm gonna try one more thing. Let me just do this. How does that sound?
I hear you.
Okay. I hope this is better. I hope it's not low. Um, but yeah, like I was saying, one, stop telling us, okay, good. All right, yay. So there was, you know, one to why don't you just stop researching altogether? You weren't enslaved. Be happy for where you are now. You can't research. That's the big one right there. You can't research. And then it's one other one, and now it's gone because I was trying to get this done. So, but my point is, we want y'all to find your families. We want y'all to dig in and get into it. So I think, you know, I think the prices that we've come up with for us is really good. And we've just added a new thing to our search. Now, and I think it was who was it that just said it? Vicky. Vicky said that she hired someone to go to the DC research, to go to the NARA to copy her grandfather's USCG pension record. She paid that person $80. I promise y'all, it didn't take that person 20 minutes to do that. Even if you count, okay, let's count in getting there. If this person had a car or whatever, but the bottom line, $80 to go and copy, just to make a copy, that's crazy to me.
Mhm.
I don't know, maybe it's cheap.
Well, again, the other thing that I was really pleased that we did is there was something else that we saw that was kind of missing out of the contracts that we saw, or that we were reading. And part of what we decided to do was to offer, in and amongst that 10-hour block of research, there's kind of an inbuilt free 1 hour, where if people already had a family tree, we would go into the tree on the specific line that they needed help with or wanted us to break through a brick wall, and we would just review their research on that line just to make sure that they had the records that they needed to have, that everything was correct, that people's parents were really their parents, not pulling records for someone who had the same name. And we do that really quickly. I think for the most part, it doesn't even really take us an hour to go through that. If we spot a mistake, we let the client know, we go in, we fix it, whatever.
Right.
Now, what we were chatting about in the car this past week was we have some new clients, thanks very much to a segment that aired on the Today Show and CNN, which with Shelley Murphy. We're getting a lot of inquiries because a lot of African Americans saw that and they're really, really excited. So Donia, as the managing genealogist for Genealogy Adventures, has been having telephone conversations with people, finding out about where their brick walls are, or if they need research just done from scratch, kind of a thing. But for those people, you quickly got a sense that there were 2 or 3 people who really knew their stuff. They were just happened to be stuck on a particular person, and charging them the full 10 hours research wouldn't have been appropriate. And we're very honest with clients. If we don't think that we're going to be able to meet your research goal or research aim, we'll tell you. You get a refund, because we're not about taking the money without being able to do the work. Never had to do that yet. Never had to do that yet. But it's something that we go over with the clients. If we honestly, in that hour's assessment of what you have and the information that you've given us, we don't think we're going to be able to meet your objective, here's your money back, or unless you want us to look at someone else in your tree. But you quickly realized that really what these people needed was just a short consultation, probably an hour or 2.
Yeah. So I spoke with at least 2 that were very deep in their research. And we had one who was going so deep in Louisiana, it was crazy. And I knew off the break, I was like, yeah, you need to try to find Yaya Gordon, because Yaya is the better person for Louisiana. I'm not even gonna sit there and make that issue, like that. Oh, Lacrissa, she said challenge accepted, Brian. So I guess she got
Okay.
but yeah, so I couldn't in my right conscience. This lady, y'all, she went back to like 1840. What I look like taking her money if she already know how to do this? Like that's just not fair. That's not fair at all. And I told her I don't feel comfortable with that. And I believe in karma. And I believe in all of that. And I just didn't feel comfortable taking this lady's money. And so as I was talking to her and I told her, I was like, you actually need to speak with someone to give you a aim or a direction, not necessarily spend $400 on trying to get somebody to go back further than what you've already done. And you have done your work. You've been there. This has now become your story. Why you want me to take it over? And that's how I was thinking about all of that. And that's how we came up with the Vicky said you guys were apparently raised with morals. This is right. Not everyone has them, and that's true. And and Gina said karma, and that's what I was getting ready to get at. So karma is, y'all know the word, and she's not nice. Karma's not nice at all. And so I'm sitting there and I'm talking to this lady, and as I'm speaking to her, I found out something else that she felt was a lost cause. And I was like, well, that's what we need to help you with, because it's not a lost cause. So if you want to go that direction, we can. And that's what she's doing. So my karma, by telling her, hey, I refuse to take your money because you are already there. Let me figure something else out, or let me go another route. And then she turns around and tells me another story, and I'm like, well, that was what we can help you with. It came right back.
Mm-hmm.
It came
Immediately.
right. Yes,
Immediately in the same phone conversation.
in the same conversation. We never even hung up the phone. So it's just but we have some researchers up here, Brian,
Well,
and
there's a question I'd like to just dip into for a hot minute. Um, Please forgive me if I mispronounce your name. I believe it's More Ta. And the question is, are your fees more if there hasn't been any DNA research? The fee is the fee. How, basically, again, we will go over with the clients kind of how we're going to split that time up, including writing up all of the research log, digitizing the documents, and getting them to the client and all of that. I'm going to be brutally honest with you. You cannot be an African American and want to do your research without taking a DNA test. There are things that we can do. If someone hasn't taken a DNA test and we suggest that they do, and then they go off and they do it, we all know, with any of the large DNA testing company, it can take weeks to months to get those results back. So we will exhaust that paper trail as much as we can, or move on to another line that the client wants us to work on while we're waiting for those DNA results to come in. But ultimately, the fee is the fee.
yeah. Yeah. And then and also the main thing that I was trying to push, as I talk to our clients, is that within that research report at the very end, we give suggestions. We
Yes.
talk about the next steps, what you need to do to find this particular person, how you need to go about finding this particular person, the direction you need to go to find this particular person, all of that. You have to, and that's where if they haven't taken DNA, then we tell them, you know what, you need to take DNA. Now I want to say this. If anybody on here wants us to do theirs and they have taken an African ancestry DNA test, we cannot use that.
That is true. We can't.
We cannot, because they do not allow research with their stuff. So,
But family tree DNA, MyHeritage, 23andMe, Ancestry, any of the autosomal. Again, the difference with African ancestry, is that what it's called? African ancestry DNA or African DNA, whatever it's called. They are only African ancestry. They are only looking at a haplogroup. So there's nothing that we can, there's just nothing that we can do with that.
Right. Right.
A.E. Barlow asked an excellent question. Is there a directory for African American genealogy researchers? I have seen a few. Cindy's list has them. We're not on any of them. I don't know why, but I believe Maggie, the Mid-Atlantic African American Genealogicals in History Society, I believe they have one. You have to Google it, I'm afraid.
Also, I think with the there's always the board certified, and their listing is up there. And if you have any African Americans that took the board certification, then they're going to be on the board certification genealogist list. That's actually a website, and it gives all of the listings of people and who's doing what and what they've researched and so on and so forth. But I think with African Americans, you have to be very careful, because our research is not like traditional research. And if a person
Mm-mm.
comes off and say, yeah, they can do that research, and then they tell you that because somebody's name is not on the death record, that they can't go any further, you don't want that person. You just don't want that person. I'm just, yeah,
Mhm.
I'm keep it
So
real.
a couple of people have asked for the Genealogy Adventures link to the research services. I am so sorry. This website refresh is just taking so much longer than anyone had anticipated. But we do have a wonderful video that you can either watch on Facebook Live. I will repost a link to that research video at the end of the show. We also have the same video on our YouTube channel.
Well,
So
I
people,
tell you what, why don't we take a break and post the video right now while we take this quick break?
oh,
So I
okay.
guess this is our commercial break. How about that?
How about that?
Hold on, we'll be right
Okay.
back.
Whether you've hit a roadblock in your research or simply lack the time or training to tackle it yourself, our talented Genealogy Adventures staff of professional researchers are here to help you. Researching poorly documented ancestors is one of our specialities. We're located just outside of Washington, D.C. and near all of the major national archives. We work with individuals, museums, county exhibitions, plus production companies, and we really look forward to working with you on your projects.
And we're back.
And we're back.
No, but seriously, we 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 do what we're doing, we do for, I mean, I guess, you know what, Brian, I'm gonna say this. I'm just gonna say it. I'm sorry. We do this for people of color. And that's all people of color. That's not, and because it's easier to work with traditional research. We definitely do traditional research. We have no problem in doing traditional research, but our cost is really based upon getting people of color to get in on it. I'm not saying that our costs will go up for people for traditional, because it doesn't, because we still want everybody to do their research. We want everybody to get into it. But in the same instance, we need to know who we are. You know,
Especially in the times that we're living in.
yes. I mean,
When
it's mandatory.
when we're talking about unobjectionable books, and I mean books where no reasonable person should have an objection to them being on a school shelf or being removed. Specifically about Black history, and African American history. We're just really passionate about just African Americans and all people of color just getting out there and learning their history. Again, and even me speaking to my colleagues in my office and the Daughters of the American Revolution here in DC, they didn't realize that, they're like, well, were there Black patriots? I'm like, yeah, there were. I said thousands of them. And then, I did my usual stick, my usual kind of routine. And I'm like, there were Chinese people who fought in the revolution. There were Muslims who fought in the revolution, Jewish people, people of color of every description. Um, Spanish speaking people fought in the America. It's like everyone fought. It's just we're only fed one narrative. It's
Yes,
like, I can't
it
say that you
just happened. That's the thing. Yes,
exactly,
the Dust
exactly.
didn't just happen. It didn't just all of a sudden, oh, everybody's from here now. Or everybody got, come on now. I need y'all to like really think about this. That's just like interracial relationships didn't just happen. I mean, it's so much. Men with men or women with women didn't just happen. None of these things didn't just occur all of a sudden, and now you need to bring a recognition to it. None of this stuff just happened.
Mhm. And again, the Genealogy Adventures website, that's genealogyadventures.net, is down. We are working on a refresh. It is offline. But I do hope we are aiming to get it up within the next 6 to 8 weeks.
But if you
Um,
ever want to contact
oh,
me
you just faded out on me there.
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. If you guys ever, want to talk to us about anything, we will definitely place the email address. Our email address is Genealogy Adventures at E360TV.com. And is that right?
Yeah, Genealogy Adventures, plural, at e360tv.com.
Yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then that way you guys will be able to, y'all, excuse me, I've been busy. No, but you'll always be able to, ask a question or be able to do, something. We'll be able
Mm-hmm.
to help somehow.
Someone, I just lost that comment, asked if we teach classes.
No.
No, we don't. We did talk about that a few years ago, but then our belief is that a national African American genealogical society should teach African American genealogy and should offer a certificate in it.
Yeah, yeah. And then there was something else that I wanted to say about researching African Americans. You guys don't realize how, like, some people don't realize. I don't want to say as you guys. Some people just don't realize how deep your history is in America and the role that your families played in it. When you start doing this research and you start kicking in and you start finding this stuff, and you're like, wait a minute, so what you're saying is my great great grandmother was right here, and she was right there in the thick of what was going on, and I didn't know it. That's the kind of stuff that you
Well,
get at, and
look, I was just going to quickly say, look at that Victor Blackwell segment that featured Shelley and then the rest of her team at the International African American Museum down in Charleston. Look at what they did for him. The man
yeah.
was in tears. He could have never foreseen that. Did they get back to the late 1600s or the very early 1700s? It was some.
I think it was the early 1700s where she ended up finding out that not one but two of his
Mhm.
maternal line of women had to continue to fight for their freedom. These women were free people of color, and they had to fight for it. They did it maybe twice. Shelley did excellent an excellent job with that. I mean, it's crazy how well she just, and then she did it again with Craig Melvin, on the
Mhm.
Today Show. She just, it was nothing for her.
But again, it couldn't have. I can't imagine that either man could have conceived that any genealogist could have taken their African American lines deep into the 1700s. I mean, we're talking deep into the 1700s.
Yep, yep. And even though it was free people of color, which is another thing that I feel like is really, really ignored, because everybody is so bent on thinking, yeah, my people were enslaved and blah, 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 blah. What if they weren't? Just
Hmm.
that simple. What if they weren't? And then you're like, you on a whole nother level. That's because of the narrative, the way things has been taught to us and how we go about doing things. You know, that's the problem. And if you start you start doing the research on your family, you will relearn this history and you will relearn it properly, especially if you have the right person helping you do it, or the right person guiding you to do it if you don't know how, or if you're just doing it on your own. You have to have that open mind of understanding and knowing that it is a possibility that that enslaved woman actually fell in love with her enslaver. Stuff didn't just happen, y'all. It didn't just happen. That is a possibility. You have to, the mindset that you have to have in being a researcher, a genealogical researcher, especially an African American genealogical researcher. You got to be open to everything. And I wanted to say something real quick to Ms. Bowen. I want to put I put up that link about Maggie. Maggie is something that's awesome and great. And I really want you guys to check out their Facebook page. And that way you can really get the information that Ms. Bowen is putting out there. But another thing that we offer that is not being taken advantage of is advertising. We offer that. Y'all can have your own 30-second commercial up in here
Hmm.
too.
Well, I was gonna also piggyback off of what you said. That was a very powerful point you were making the last time. The last comment was, for every Louisa Hammond who was legit raped, there's no sugarcoating it. She was started to be raped at the age of 12. You have an exception, like my three times great grandmother, Venus Jossie, Northampton County, North Carolina, whose enslaver and the father of her children was writing her love letters from the Civil War, telling her how much he missed her and couldn't wait to get back to her and their children. He acknowledged their children.
Yeah.
Now, Venus couldn't write, so we don't know for certain how she felt about him. But the fact that he's writing her love letters. Now, you know Mr. Hammond in Edgefield was not writing Louisa Hammond love letters.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So as Danya was saying, you really do have to come to this with an open mind. Now, A.E. Barlow has opened up the Pandora's box with her question, but it is an excellent question. Since African American genealogy is so unique, should genealogists who do African American genealogy be BCGC, i.e. traditional research, certified? I'm going to give you my heartfelt response to that, and I'm going to speak for me. I am not speaking for Danya. I'm not speaking for any other African American genealogist out there. I am speaking for me. The only reason why I have not gotten BCGC certified is because if I'm going to pay money and spend time out of an incredibly hectic and busy schedule to get certified, it has got to be African American genealogical specific. It has got to be specific to African American genealogy, and they don't do that. So that is the reason why I've never gone that route.
Same for me. I think that, I was, Brian and I, we have a lot of different conversations when we're in the car, and this was something that we kind of discussed as well. And I personally feel that African American genealogists are equivalent to immigrants. Now, hear me out. When an immigrant comes here, they come here speaking their own language. And they have to turn around and they have to learn English, or in order for them to get along. I don't think it's mandatory, but in order for them to really move in the manner in which they need to move, having English as that second language for them is it has to happen. With that being said, this is something that I believe Yaya has said on here. This is something that's always been said on the show. You cannot do African American genealogy without incorporating traditional genealogy. But traditional genealogy does not have to add us. So technically, we have two languages. That's just literally how I look at that. I take these odd things and I make analogies with them, and I hope y'all understand what I'm saying. When I say it, I'm not trying to knock anybody or hurt anyone in any kind of way when I'm saying it, but that's just my overall feeling of it. It's like we have two languages. We have to know one in order for us to do the other. Whereas traditional genealogy, you don't have to know about me. You can straight ignore those names that's listed on that will, because as far as you're concerned, it doesn't pertain to you. So I guess that's just my thought process. But
because I'd also like to say that having done African American genealogy for so long, and specifically enslaved genealogy for so many decades, has made me a better researcher, and it's actually empowered me to go back at my poor white colonial lines who were living in the back of beyond and find their partial footprints and go back and find missing records for them, or search for information about them in a different way. Because again, as anyone knows, when you're dealing with enslaved people, it's never a direct shot. You have to interpret these partial footprints and figure out what's going on, and dealing with whole record sets that a lot of traditional Caucasian researchers will never have to look at, never have to know about at all during the course of their research.
Yeah, yeah. So I want to go back to what I was trying to get to. The fact that we actually have some researchers on here. I'm trying to find some of their comments. Like for example, Tanya T. She made a comment saying that she actually taught a master class, and that she, and then there was somebody else who said they do it for free when they're at the library. I'm sorry, you guys are commenting today. You hot today. Um, but she says she does it free at the library, but when she does it for herself, she charges $60 an hour. But I guess my question to you guys is, what made you make your choices, your amount? And Tanya, how did you get into doing a master class for African American research? That I think that's awesome. So, those are the things that I would love to hear from you guys about.
Because again, having this conversation, what would happen in any other profession is the more experience you have, and especially the more specialism that you have in a specifically difficult area like rocket science, engineering. I mean, that's probably one of the most complex things I can think of besides microsurgery. But when you have this level of in-depth, specific knowledge, you would normally be expected to charge a lot of money for it.
Mhm.
Um, I guess I don't want to say that we're giving back, but again, we chose not to go that route just to make ourselves more affordable for more people to have their family history.
Right. So, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, Leah, because I think the E is silent. She said, "What is or isn't appropriate for those of us who aren't Black but fully aware of Black family members, whether before or after Civil War?" Let me just say this: we have one researcher that works with us that is not Black, but when I tell you she speaks that language, that second language that I was talking about, she definitely speaks that language. You can, but you just gotta be open to being able to talk about this whole situation and know that no, we're not blaming Black people as a whole. I'm not, well, let me rephrase this because I can't speak for everybody. Me personally, I am never blaming another white person for what happened
Hmm.
300, so many hundred years ago. I'm just not. I'm not. I think that's ridiculous. Just as ridiculous as it is for a white person to tell me that I don't need to research my enslaved people because they were enslaved and I wasn't. This is my family. You look at them as enslaved folks. I look at them as the reason why I'm on this earth.
You
And
look at them as you look at them as Martha Brooks, Martha Ann Williams. We have their
we have
names.
names. These are people. These are total people. So if you can respect that and continue to move forward and understand that if you have a will up in your attic and you know that up in your attic on that will there is a listing of names of persons, they're not property, they're people, and they have descendants that are on this earth today that would not be here had they not gone through what they went through just for us to be alive. That's what I think is the most important thing that any person who is of non-melanated skin should understand is that we are people. Those people were people. Those enslaved persons, they had children, they ate food, they had a house. They weren't, they took care of their home, they
They
took
had
care of
hopes and
your home,
they had hopes and dreams.
they had hopes and dreams. I am there. I'm a dream. I'm a dream. I know that. I'm a dream. They had all of these different things, just like your family did.
Mhm. And beginning to learn that when people got them twisted, oh yeah, they may not be able to pick up their fists and beat somebody, but they had other ways of short circuiting the system.
The, the help was real. The help was real. I know y'all saw there. I know y'all saw the movie The Help. And when she made that pie, that's a real thing. That's a real thing. They gonna do what they gotta do to move forward, to get away from you, to handle whatever business that they needed to handle. Even if the fact that some of them made the choice to stay. How about that? How about that part?
Mhm.
Let's look at that. That's a choice. You had them trying to run all the time. You had enslaved people running, but there was some that was like, you know what? I need to feed my baby. I don't need to put my baby out there on that road like that and trying to get away just to get to freedom, just to know that I got to have papers in another spot in order me to say that I'm free. No, sir. I'm going to work through this and I'm going to make it through this. And Danya is going to be born. That's how I look at it. Given the fact that my great great grandmother Martha Brooks was amongst one of, he was off the chain, y'all. He was off the chain. I don't know how his father was, but I know how he was. And he was off the chain. And she made it through that. She made it through that. She had children that had children that had children that had me.
So yeah, they probably won't know who you're talking about. You're talking about Preston Brooks.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna say his name because I also got a slight love for him. I and don't
Oh no,
that's
he was just a difficult man. He was like
he,
he was a real live wire with a very short fuse.
but since I said that I have a love for him, I have a love for him because I know who I am because of him.
Yeah,
Because guess
exactly.
who else got a very short fuse, y'all? Guess who else got? Who got that
So
fuse?
in the final minutes of the show, I actually wanted to give a shout out to the unsung heroes and heroines of African American genealogy, and that's reparational genealogists, because
Amen.
they don't charge. They will only work with African Americans, specifically descendants of enslaved people. They tend to be Caucasian, and they feel as though this is their way to pay back. Um, I'm thinking of Carolyn specifically because she's a descendant of enslavers. She feels that this is how she wants to repay that back, researching people's enslaved families. And that's also a calling. That's also a vocation. It's definitely a calling.
Right. And I don't want people to think that when they do stuff like that, they feel
You dropped out. You dropped out.
I said I don't want people to feel like they feel guilty that they're doing it because they feel guilty. No, they're doing it because they know it's owed to us. Because I know that's why Carolyn does it. Carolyn does it because she's like, if this is the least that I can do. I already know. I already know what happened. I get it. I understand it. I already know what happened. So now it is it's for me to come back and say, let me find your family. That's another person that speaks that African American genealogy language. So this hour went fast.
It did. It did. And Christopher Smothers had a great comment. I think he's referring to the reparational genealogists.
It's real
It's a
ministry.
real ministry. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, it's a ministry. It is because you have to, you have to want to do those types of things. Eric Armstrong, he was saying William and Murray is looking into reparations. I was at the event last weekend. Wow,
Wow.
wow,
Okay.
okay,
So I guess reparations is going to become, even though this isn't the topic of the show, but it's a great comment. I guess that's going to become a states' rights thing. It seems like that's how it's going. California's doing it. New York is talking about it. I believe
yeah,
New Jersey is discussing it.
yeah, yeah. Well, I just want to thank everybody for joining us today, and we coming back. We got more shows. We got 5 shows left in this season, and that is
Mhm.
it 5 or 6? Is it one more Sunday in this month? No.
Five. Five. Quickly with yes, Minka, if you Google reparational genealogy or reparational genealogist, you'll find them. I even think they have a community on Facebook, but don't quote me on that. But if you
Yeah.
type in those two phrases in Google, you'll pull them up.
Okay. Yes, Henry. Only 5 because however many. I'll put it like this: however many Sundays are left in July, that's what we have, and then we go on hiatus to get. I'm not going to say well-deserved rest because when I tell y'all I'm on some other stuff as far as busy, I am on some other stuff. I can't stand it. But yeah, and then after that, but we were sure to be returning in October. And but let's not that's 5 shows away. So let's
Yeah.
not even get into that.
Yes, plus I need my time during the summer to just get my head down and crank out the last of these Birdwood Plantation again, talking about descendants of enslaved people. Get out the last of the reports for the Birdwood Plantation project.
Exactly, exactly. Well, again, this was a great show. I'm glad you guys liked it. Everybody is talking about it already. Please don't forget to like and share. And there was one other
Hmm.
thing that I wanted to get at very quickly for those that are interested in advertising. Just again, hit us up on that email address, and we have no problem in talking to you about the advertising opportunities. Even that is cheaper than most places
Hmm.
because again,
And
we want you to get it out there. We want you to
yeah.
support you.
And also, before I forget, when you approach a genealogist, especially if you know that you're a descendant of enslaved people, do not be afraid to ask them questions about their research background.
That's
How
right.
many cases like yours have they worked on? What is their success rate? Um, Even though you wouldn't be able to see a full report because it will contain information about living people, can they send you a sample of the report? It's your money. It's like buying, you know, you wouldn't buy a car without seeing it, or at least, yeah, I guess you can do that online now. I'm sorry, I'm showing my age now. I wouldn't buy a car without seeing it, without kicking the tires. So yeah, if I was hiring a genealogist and dropping a couple $100, um, I would have a lot of questions for them. So like I said, don't be afraid to ask. And that's
That-
any genealogist that you
That's
want to
right.
hire. Yeah.
That's right.
So we are out of time,
We
actually.
are. We are. We are. So thank you again for joining us, and we will see you guys next Sunday. I'm Danya.
I'm Brian, and see you next week.
Bye bye.
Bye.